the ceiling of my career or your audience career is going to be on these winning of the work skills.
At a certain point, it's no longer about how good you are at what you do. It's whether you can consistently win bigger opportunities. My guest today is Mo Bunnell. He's one of the world's leading experts on business development and author of Give to Grow. Together, we unpack how leaders can win bigger opportunities with less effort by changing how they communicate long before any decision is made.
We hate to be sold to, but we love to buy.
You said that there's a difference between doing the work and winning the work. So please explain.
Yeah, I think actually this is one of the biggest unlocks that anybody that's looking to rise up in an organization needs to know. And that can work whether you're internal in an internal function like finance or HR or IT or anything like that, or if you're rising up through an organization that has external clients, like you're a consultant or a lawyer or something like that. I know you have audience members on both sides of the fence. And the difference between doing the work and the winning work is doing the work takes skills like I'm gonna communicate how we're doing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have relatively long emails that give updates. I'm going to my whole goal is to show with certainty we are going to deliver on something. Those are doing the work skills and ways of communication. Obviously, people are locked into communication because you're the expert there. The winning of the work skills around communication are totally different. Instead of the headline being certainty and communicating that, the headline is possibility. It's getting meetings and access to help shape the agenda, to bring new ideas to our bosses, to other functional areas, to our external clients, to get meetings where the person might even not know why you want to meet, but you're bringing them an idea that they don't yet know that they need. So there's a whole suite of communication skills on the winning of the work side of things that aren't just different, they're really, in many cases, the exact opposite of the doing of the work skills.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when we start out in our careers, doing the work comes naturally, right? You come out of university and you get your first jobs and you're just in it and you just do the work and you love it and you're good at it. But at some point in your career, you almost have to make that switch, right? To, okay, I'm also going to win the work, whether you're winning the work internally or whether you're winning it externally. Would you say it's a learnable skill, or are some people just born winners of work?
Well, it's definitely a learnable skill. And even before I get into that, I got to say, at some point in someone's career, and you were standing right next to this idea, and I just want to land the plane for everybody, is not only is this a new skill to build, this is the most important skill to build. Mm-hmm. I was an actuary, as you know, so we have to actually get into the conversation a little bit before we disclose that, because no one would join a podcast on communication skills by an actuary or business development skills. But I in the United States, the highest designation is Fellow of the Society of Actuaries. Back in the 80s, 90s, it took 24 exams and things like that. Those were doing of the work skills, like being certified to do a thing. I bet a lot of your audience has advanced certifications or at least some really deep technical expertise. That's the floor of our career. Like, I'm not going to have to go back and wait tables like I did in college. I'm good. I'm not going to have to drop to that. But the worst thing that could ever happen to me is I could go back and do actuarial work. And that's a really good career. It's a great career. But the ceiling of my career or your audience career is going to be on these winning of the work skills. Can I develop relationships? Can I build trust? Can I shape the agenda of the organization, of the function of my clients? Those kind of skills are, once you reach a certain level of expertise, they're going to determine our height. Now, to get to your question, it's definitely learnable. All the science shows this. Dr. K. Anders Ericsson, who is at Florida State University here in the United States, he's the 10,000 hour rules guy that Malcolm Gladwell popularized, as you know. He found over 30 years of studying expertise, easily the worldwide expert on expertise. He found that every complex skill is learned and earned. No one's born with it when it comes to complex skills.
I love the analogy that our qualifications are the floor of our career, but the winning the work, the relationships, getting our hands dirty, not by doing the thing, but by shaking hands, that's the ceiling. I love that analogy. Yet a lot of conversations leaders have every day with prospects, clients, customers don't really lead anywhere. So make that more strategic in the sense of we're working towards winning the work. I think some people shy away from this because it feels a little transactional. I don't want to push too hard, it's fire, it's not going to work. What can we do about this?
Yeah, well, this is a great conversation because what I can do is share the two things that everybody does, and they're both wrong, and I'll give you the one way to actually do it right. So let's give some examples before we get into the two ways of wrong and the one way to right. Let's say an internal example might be somebody really wants to help lead a certain type of project. They're trying to get staff to, or maybe they even think, hey, our organizations need to do this type of project and I can lead it. So that would be a common thing. Externally, it's just winning work with clients. You're a consultant, you're a lawyer, you're an architect, engineer, an actuary, whatever, and you just need to win the mandate to be the person they use. Either of those examples are great, but let's say we know what that is, but the decision makers don't yet know that they need to hire us or don't even know that this thing should be done. So the two wrong ways people do it. One is sometimes people go into pure sales mode. Well, the problem with that is if we bring our ideas and they don't align or the person doesn't realize that's a priority, this idea of human beings, we hate to be sold to, but we love to buy. And I'll say we hate to be sold to, but love to buy. We can smell somebody selling to us a mile away and it just creates fight or flight. That doesn't work to go into pure sales mode. I'm going to talk about me. I'm going to talk about what we should do. People just get entrenched in the position they have and you end up not getting anywhere. In fact, you can harm yourself.
Can I just follow up on this? Because this bothers me a lot. A lot of the sales, business development, communication advice out there proposes exactly that. Have a sales script, push those psychological triggers, FOMO, urgency, etc. But I think it's missing a big part of the equation, namely the other human, who is certainly a very intelligent person, and they will just feel it and they sense it and it will backfire, right?
Yeah. Like an external client example of that is, I'm going to show up. I've got a meeting with the decision maker. I know they hire my organizations like mine to do a certain kind of work. So what do? Oh my gosh, I've got to close this. I've got one shot. I'm going to show up with my 72-page PowerPoint deck, and it shows my mission and values, and then it shows all the different things that we do, and then I'm going to walk through, what we think we could do for them, and then there's 3 case studies at the end with our bios. Like they're all the same, and when you start with that sales mode, air quotes around that with somebody, they're immediately defensive. They're like, "Whoa, I've already got partners. I really like them. I don't need somebody like you. And by the way, how the heck did you get this meeting?" It's like, it's fight or flight. You want to punch them or run. What works is to come in with an idea that is partially baked. So there's some science called the IKEA Effect. Michael Norton out of Harvard, Dan Ariely out of Duke, sort of the all-star list of researchers. And they found that people buy into what they create. They called the mental heuristic or the mental shortcut in our minds the IKEA effect because one of their studies used IKEA furniture. And they found that if you were given a set of IKEA furniture and asked to sell it in the marketplace, you didn't ask as much for it as if you put it together yourself ahead of time. We love our own ideas. So one of the best things we can do to get approval is to come in with a half-baked idea. To basically say, internal example, hey, decision maker, I really think that if we used AI in this new, very specific way, I've researched this a ton, I could share more, but if we did it in this very specific way, I think, not sure, but I think we might be able to take between $150 and $250 million out of the business that would drop straight to the bottom line. Wow. Or I think that we could streamline XYZ process and remove 7 steps in 32 days out of the process if we use AI. Some kind of hook. You're really good at this in Message Machine. You got that great model of start with a hook. So start with a hook to get their attention. And I'm literally using your stuff here. And then say, I think it'd be interesting to discuss this. I've got some ideas, but you have a perspective I don't have. And I'd love to get your thoughts and see if I'm pointing in the right direction, if this is a priority or not. Well, now we're in an interesting conversation where I'm going to build the relationship and I'm going to show some expertise and I'm moving in the direction that I would like to win the work, if you will, but they're going to actually get their fingerprints all over the idea. A, we're going to come up with better ideas because we're doing this collaboratively. And B, we buy into what we help create, IKEA Effect. They're likely to start to become a sponsor and an advocate for the idea itself, and it's going to result in meaningful follow-ups afterwards.
I love that. This is so good, and certainly jumps with my experience. When I tried to be all relationship, I had sometimes had the experience that the other person wasn't even clear what I'm selling, right? So
Yeah.
to
Yeah. They like you, but they're
yeah,
confused. Yeah.
and certainly had experience where I was pushing too hard, and you learn over the years, but kind of settled where you are. And an element that is still needed, I guess, is credibility, right? So how can I establish credibility quickly?
Oh, so good. So then let's just like grab this thread that we're talking about in the meetings, and we'll talk about credibility quickly because this is so important. The number one thing for someone to focus on now that they're in the meeting, we talked about how to frame it up. We'll use your message machine idea of having a hook. Now they're engaged. The number one thing we want to focus on in meeting one is to get meeting two. Because if we have one enjoyable meeting and we bonded and they like us, that's awesome, but it's going nowhere. To win the work, the number one thing we want is momentum. We want to be rolling downhill. So in our book, Give to Grow, which I know you've read, there's a whole chapter on this idea, but we want to, sometime in meeting one, we want to offer what we would do in meeting two. One way to do that is to think about, hey, if they're interested in this new AI idea that I've got, for some time, at some point in meeting one to say, hey, I've actually built out a model. You've given me a bunch of how much money we could save or time we could save, whatever. I've actually built out a model, but you've given me a bunch of ideas I want to incorporate in it because I think I had it 60% right, but I think we can get to 80 or 90. Would it be helpful if I went back and revised the model based on some of the assumptions and ideas that you just gave and we brainstormed together? And what if we set up a meeting in a week or two and I brought the model with you and we can tinker around with it? Because if we're both in the ballpark, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of upside here. And I would love to get your view on like actually getting into some of the assumptions and let's do some sensitivity testing together. So look at what we did there. We bonded, we created follow-ups, we created momentum. We're moving in the direction that we want to go. Now, finally, to your credibility point, how are we going to show credibility? When they see how robust this model is, when they see that we've thought through that the sensitivity testing of this assumption turning into that result and helping them get their mind around it, if we're 4 steps ahead of them, they're not only buying into moving in the direction, but they're buying into us to lead it because A, we brought them an idea, and B, we know it better than anybody else they know. Why would they want to waste their time and go find somebody else to do it? They want to use us.
Yeah.
So all these things we're talking about is the thread through it is proactivity, number one, and generosity, number two. We're going to give them ideas. We're going to give them details. We're going to give them project plans, next steps, things like that. And then trust, credibility, momentum. That's all being built out by starting with this generous philosophy.
I love it because the credibility is established in the meeting and it's very specific, right? Of course,
yes.
You have social proof and you have wonderful testimonials on the website. But to me, those are more like, enablers. They're not going to push the decision. They're just, they're there. It would be odd if they weren't there, if we had no social proof, but everyone kind of has it. So it's more of an equalizer. But I love that it is very specific. I could even see this, your approach working, let's say, in a job interview. Oh, if you invite me back, I'm happy to come back with a plan, how we could implement this in the first 30 days or 90 days. I can see this working internally, right? If you're pitching for a project internally, get the green light to go ahead with a new initiative could work in the same way, right?
100%. Yeah, you nailed it. There was somebody I met with a couple weeks ago as traveling to Washington, D.C. I live in Atlanta. And a friend that I know disclosed that she just had a horrible conversation with her boss the day before. Meaning she had basically asked for a raise because her comp was, and I know this space really well, her comp was half of what it should be. And this would never happen to a man, but her boss, who was the COO, said, you better get yourself in line and decide if you want to be here or not because, we just don't pay like that here. Didn't engage, didn't ask questions, didn't ask for market data, anything like that. Just basically whacked her on the head. And I have 2 daughters and a wife. I was visibly upset in the breakfast when she shared this. But here's the good news. We're 5 weeks out from that. I was able to introduce her to CEO of another organization that we work with. She already got a job offer and she doubled her pay.
Wow.
The way that she got it, Oliver, is exactly like you said. They had actually already made a decision about somebody else. I had emailed her resume to the CEO to say, just pay attention to this person. She's really, really good. She went in, she had a relatively light, okay, we'll just talk to her kind of interview, but we already like these other people. And what did she do? She started with generosity. She struck a chord with the way that how she likes to work. Over the course of these 5 weeks, she's developed a plan for them. It's the plan she's going to use. She literally had to use either 14 or 15 different interviews with senior decision makers as she moved through the process. She kept updating the plan on that. She circles back to the main decision maker, the COO, who's interfacing with the search firm on this. And she just basically used this whole process as a way, generosity, big ideas, not just talking about how great she was. She was displaying how great she was. And last Friday, she got the offer.
Amazing.
Like unbelievable. Yep.
This is so good. And would you recommend using storytelling? Is there a way to include storytelling here to connect emotionally, or would you say this is the wrong kind of conversation?
You and I are both fans of storytelling. This would be fun to riff on because you've got some great frameworks. The one we teach is we synthesize Joseph Campbell's work in A Hero with That Sound of 1,000 Faces and all of his hero's journey work. He's got 12 or 13 steps or something in a big, it's relatively complex, but super robust and detailed. We just distilled that down to 3 things. Mm-hmm. The call, the conflict, and the conclusion. And just bonus points we try to add a little alliteration there. What storytelling can do is let you talk about yourself without talking about yourself. Yeah. So one of the most powerful ways is to actually make your clients, whether the internal or external clients or the people that you serve, we all serve somebody, to make them the heroes. Mm-hmm. So an external example might be, we're in the initial conversations with a potential client that might be able to hire us. We might be able to share a story about how somebody similar to them got the call. That's like you were given a mandate, you didn't ask for it, you're already behind, and you need help. Like that's basically the call. Like Luke Skywalker didn't want to save the world, or the universe. He just wanted to farm on Tatooine, right? He's like, but he got the call. And at some point he's like, okay, I gotta go for this. Then that moves us into the conflict where we don't even have to talk about ourselves, but we can very strongly infer that we worked with this client. They started out behind, there were bumps in the road, we worked together, we did this and that and this and that and this and that, and then we reached the objective. And we're mostly telling that through their lens. And then that triggers that we're to the conclusion, which is the part of storytelling almost everybody leaves out. And that is somehow after victory is had, how do we reflect back and realize the impact was far bigger than we ever thought it would be? If we can think of the great client success stories we've had, if we can really think through what was the call, what was the part that the client didn't even want to accept this mandate, but they had to find somebody to help them. That's going to be us. What was the conflict? How did we collaborate? How enjoyable was it? It was great. It was fun. There were tough times. There were high times. There were midnight calls. But we got through it together, and then the conclusion is somehow they got promoted. Now they're CEO. The economic impact was 10 times higher than we thought it would be. If we can tell that story arc and make the client or the internal external client the hero, we never even have to talk about ourselves. Yeah. But it's very clear we were the enabler to all that. And then the recipient of that story wants to be the other person. Yeah. And now we're in a really good place.
90% of presentations are forgotten within a day, and even the best ideas get ignored. Over the last 20 years, I've helped hundreds of leaders prepare for stages like TED and South by Southwest, and the difference is always the same. Top 1% communicators, they use a system, and this system is called the Perfect Presentation Planner. Download it now, it's free, link in the description. If we bring it down to earth a little bit, a difficult conversation to be had is often about pricing. How do we approach this? Because we have this great conversation, we're solving problems, we're in a really good groove together. But what about the price?
A couple things are really important. The first I would lead, there's 3 big things here. The first thing I would lead with is that Maria Conley did a meta study of all kinds of other studies, core level researcher again. You can tell we love research. And she synthesized a shortcut in her mind, another mental heuristic around how we think about pricing. And it literally just comes down to this. The more complex a choice is, the more we lean on price as the number one indicator of quality. She summarized this in such simple terms, like literally in the paper. Her summary says, we summarize things to this level. Expensive equals good, cheap equals bad. It's that simple. So one of the practical, bring it down to earth takeaways we can have is if we are more expensive, the most important thing we can do is own it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're saying we do all this marquee work, we're the best, whatever, and then we have inexpensive fees, that doesn't sound right. If we say we do all this marquee work and we are expensive, and if the client says gosh, you're pretty expensive, the best thing you do is say, yeah, we actually are. And this is one of those things where if you get it wrong, it's really high risk. Or this is your number one priority you shared with me in the XYZ department, so you want to do it the right way. You just, whatever you say, basically say, yeah, we are, and we're really good. And this is you almost reinforce that you're not for everybody, but that this is a priority.
So if I'm presenting lots of different pricing options, like you can have A, B, C, and it's different timeframes, it's different services, long list, dots.
Yep.
I assume that's the wrong way to go about it. It needs to be a very crystal clear choice.
It can. I think of it in two ways. If the client knows exactly what they want, I give them one option. Mm-hmm. You do not want to confuse things. If we're on a call and we're scoping it out and it's clear that they want a training class and there's 20 people that are going to be in it and they'd like to bolt on coaching to it to make a truly transformational multi-month experience, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, who's really great for you would be Gina. She knows your industry really well. The price is X. Here's what you'll get. One option. So that's path one. Path two, there are some times where a client really wants to use you, but they're not quite sure how. So if we're on path two, this is a lot to cover verbally, but I'll say there's a 2A and a 2B path. There's a fork in the road after that one. 2A is sometimes we'll use what we call a laundry list approach. So remember, on this path, they know they want to do something, but they're not sure what. We'll give them 6 or 7 options, bespoke, customized for them, and we'll just show them all and say, based on a recording, we really think options 2 and 3 would be best, but what do you think? 2B is if it's really complicated, like there's a multi-million-dollar proposal we've got at now, which would train hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world globally. Do you travel? Do you not? There's a lot going on there. Mm-hmm. Laundry list wouldn't work for that because it is one solution, but there's different scales. So there we do a good, better, best approach. Mm-hmm. We synthesize a multifaceted approach, but good is sort of typically just get started. Better is this work really well. Best is always going to be your best value. Like that's what sort of like a 3-year plan might be. Everything we do over 3 years. So it's a lot more, but you get a great deal because there's one purchase. You lock in this year's pricing, you get benefits of scale, all that kind of stuff. So option 1 is crisp and clear one option. 2A, I know they want to use us, but we're not sure why. 2A would be laundry list. Here's just a list of things. Choose what you want. 2B is it's super complicated. We're going to boil it down to 3 things. There's a yes in here somewhere. We just need to figure out which one it is.
You said something super interesting to me last year and answered a question I've had for years. Once you work with a company, an organization, it feels odd to raise the pricing. You should be raising your prices, but it always leads to a conversation. And sometimes you think, oh, it's a couple of percentage points, probably not worth having the conversation. Just keep going what we've been doing. So let's keep it steady. But of course, over the years, that erodes your budget, erodes your fees in real terms. So what should we do?
Yeah. We can lean on the research on this one. Everybody gets super hung up in round numbers, like, oh my gosh, I charge 10,000 or 100 or whatever, or maybe I have a B2C a business to consumer product. So I have to have, it has to be $497 and always has to end in a 7 and just be below a big number. We're just below $500 or we're $997, everybody gets locked into these certain frameworks. And it might work if you're selling a sweater in a retail store. Maybe that makes sense. But it doesn't work in services. It doesn't make sense at all. The research here is specific prices are believed more, A, and negotiated less, B. So what we do is there's 1 in everything that we do, and it's the last number. So if a keynote speech by one of our team members would be like $22,890. But it certainly wouldn't be 20,000. That sounds made up. It's going to get negotiated more. People just, even if that's what the math showed, you wouldn't want it because people go, oh, you just made that up. It's $20,000.
It's random,
right?
So let me throw in a random number, which is half your number.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do here is, and then the second thing is what you said, which is really important, is if we don't raise our prices every year, all of a sudden 3 years goes by, and think of the delta, the gap between 3 years of raising and not. So what we do is we raise our prices 8% every year. 8% is just enough that it's above inflation. It's not enough that people freak out. So 8% is perfect for that. So that's really important. 2 is it gets us out of having 27 meetings trying to figure out if we should raise it 3.6% or 4.2 or a bunch of other, which is the way it was before we just chose 8. And then C, all we do is we take last year's prices, we multiply it by 1.08, we round it so there's 10 on the end for, 50 or 60 different offerings that we have. And then the one thing we will do at the end of that is we will look and say, is there anything else we should raise more than that? My keynote speech has gone up more than 8% the last few years. But just as our prominence and prestige has gotten up. And then what that does is, it's super simple. You raise your prices every year. You don't get hung up because it's not exactly $10,000. It shouldn't be anyway, based on the research. And you're done. And that you'd wait, I think all the listeners, if they have external clients, they could model the difference between doing that and doing what they've done, and it's probably significant.
Another tricky conversation to be had is asking for referrals.
Yeah.
Is there a golden way to go about this?
There is a golden way, yes. So sometimes with this kind of thing, it's easiest to say what not to do, and then we've done a few times, and you say what not to do is the hardcore way, or they're not even sure what you mean way, the salesy or the relationship you mean. So the middle ground's best, where you're clear, but it's a win for everybody. So you say something like, hey, I was on LinkedIn, Oliver, and I noticed you're connected to the managing partner of a big law firm in Berlin. And, gosh, we work with this firm and that firm, and we work with Freshfields, and we work with this firm, all these firms on the continent in Europe. I bet it would be helpful for that person for him or her to learn about what's working at other law firms when it comes to growth strategies. I would be willing to do a workshop for them at no charge, based off our book Give to Grow, but applied very specifically to them because they focus a little bit more on IP than transactional work. So I'd be happy to do that. I want to make this a win for you too, so you look great. Do you think that would be helpful? And if so, would it make sense to mention it to him or her? So what we're trying to do here is A, be specific instead of vague, B, lead with generosity, C, make it a win for everybody involved, and then D, IKEA Effect, come with a vague idea and start building that with you. And because you might say, what they really need help with is their litigation practice area is really struggling. Why don't you talk to them? Okay, well, what would that look like? So then this is the structure we're doing here has more like a 90-95% success rate versus the cheesy version, which actually destroys relationships, and the beat around the bush version, which just doesn't work very well.
Now, when you end a meeting, is there a great way to close the conversation, the meeting, so that they have a good impression, they want to meet again, that we're moving things forward? You probably have some, some secret sauce here to share.
Yeah, this is elaborated more in the book Give to Grow, but the Daniel Kahneman did some research where he found, and he actually named the research the peak end rule, that people in experiences remember the peak of the experience and the very end. The peak is the emotional high, and the end is recency effect. It's just whatever happened at the end lingers. So the way that we can sort of apply that to especially business development meetings is to end in two ways. The first ending is more like recapping the next steps. Okay, gosh, this has been a super helpful meeting. Let's go back to that example we had before. I'm going to update the model. Like you said, I'll work with your executive assistants to set up a meeting. We're shooting for a week from Thursday because you're getting back from that trip when you went back from India. I'll have the model refreshed by then, and I'm really excited to show it to you. What do you think? Should we do an hour, 90 minutes? Okay, an hour. Okay, that's great. So that's good because it recaps all the decisions that were made. And maybe they say, yeah, and you know what? I want to include the chief strategy officer in this. So I'll tell my EA to make sure that she's invited because I really like her to see the model that you're putting. Okay, great. You want to have that recapping of next steps, but you don't want to just end there because it's boring. Mm-hmm. So the very last thing, so if we think of that as left brain sort of tactical, practical, the very last thing we want to leave with is more emotional. Some type of excitement. It could be saying, man, have fun on that trip to India. I know you're going with your family and it's going to be, you've really earned it. I hope you can put the phone down and have fun with your family. That could be it. It could be recapping a laugh that we all had in the middle of the meeting. It could just be expressing excitement for what we're going to do next.
Fantastic. And I love this combination of competence and warmth. As we know, that's to charisma, right? Competent, great. An expert, warmth, nice. But can you a granny? So that combination, perfect. And what I found interesting to hear what you say is putting that in the calendar, right? So the calendar isn't just Mo and Oliver catch up, but it says specifically what we are trying to achieve and maybe some notes in it so that when you look back at your calendar on Sunday and think, oh, I need to take out a few meetings, I'm too busy next week, our meeting is secured because it is clear why are we doing this and what we are trying to achieve.
I think that's brilliant. Yes. So, gosh, that's a great idea.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about AI, right? AI is making a big impact on business development, sales, not always in the good way. I'm getting a lot of spam these days. I'm sure you do too. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, well, we're building on our own tech stack, and man, is it impressive. I was actually just at something called the Legal Marketing Association meeting. The law is crazy because we do a lot of work with all the most prestigious law firms around the world, and unlike consulting, all their marketing and BD people actually share ideas. I say all that just to say that we're learning a lot because we're actually building something and showing it to clients and using it ourselves. I think a couple things are coming to mind. One is, I think the old way of thinking about AI is sort of like what was in the Apple commercials before they pulled them because Siri didn't turn out quite as good as they wanted, at least not for now. And it was like, oh, I'll use AI to write my email a little bit shorter or whatever. Man, that is like level 1 out of 27. Like that is, if people aren't doing that, they should do it right now. But what we're finding is super helpful is using AI as a thought partner. So whether now, our tool will do this right out of the box, but somebody could change Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever to learn their clients. So here's 3 things somebody might start with. They might develop a project around proactive relationship building. Let's just call it something like that. Well, they might load in step 1, load in your most important relationships. More on this in the book Give to Grow about how to pick them, but they can be who are the people that are the decision makers for the kind of winning of the work that you want? Who are the people that are strategic partners? They have relationships with the decision makers you call on, but they have a complementary offering. Well, that sometimes they're just as important as the decision maker. So if somebody could load in 10, 15, maybe 20 max relationships, that's step 1. Who am I focused on? Step 2, they could load into this project, these are the future yeses I would like to get. This is the winning of the work. We might think of these as opportunities. And if we could just talk into whatever model we want in this project, because we found about 10 times faster than typing, You talk to the model and share. I would think of it this way: think big, start small, scale up. Think big. Where do I want to be in 3 years on this opportunity? Maybe I led a huge project, or I won this kind of work, or whatever. Think big. Start small. What's my next action for each of these I can do in the next week or so? Bringing it back to agency, exactly what we can do. And then scale up, talking to the model about how you'd like to take these things to move from where you're at now to where you want to be. You might tell that project or that chat or that model, hey, how I want you to act is you are my strategic thought partner. I'm going to reach out to you once a week on Friday at 3:00. I'd like you to send me a summary of the actions I've taken in the week before, because I'm going to update you each day. I want you to give me ideas on what I should do next in the next week. I'd like you to prioritize 3 things. We call these most important things. 3 MITs or most important things I'm going to do next week to keep a relationship or an opportunity moving forward. And I want you to hold me accountable to those 3 things and ask again next week if I did them or not.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to simplify a lot here, Oliver, see what you think, but I'm trying to, if somebody did that, now AI is like their secret weapon, because it's going to bring them ideas, help them refine their thinking, hold them accountable like an external coach. There's a lot of value there.
Where can people find out more about you, the books, Bunnell Idea Group?
Yeah. So our website is Bunnell Idea Group. It's got 2 N's and 2 L's.com, BunnellIdeaGroup.com. We can put the link in the show notes.
We will.
If anybody did one thing, I'd say probably the most helpful thing is to go to this URL, givetogrow.info. Divtogrow.info. You can have a TO for the 2 or an actual Arabic 2 for the 2. It works both ways. Givetogrow.info. And what we did is, Oliver, you can imagine it when you write a book called Give to Grow, the pressure to give things away is pretty immense. So we built out this full training course that people can get at givetogrow.info, and they don't even have to buy the book.
I can confirm lots of value in the book and in the courses and everything you offer. And I think it's a good point in time to check it out, because business development, I think, is not going to get any easier, right? The economy is under pressure. There's inflation, high energy prices, AI, lots of uncertainty in the world. Mo, thank you so much. And I always ask this at the end. What's your best piece of communications advice?
Read Oliver Aust's book. Have you heard of him? Well, you're the communication expert, so I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Your content is so great.
Thank you.
I'm just so thrilled that we've got to know each other a lot over the last year or so. So I'm not joking. I would say treat it like a skill that's learnable, and you've got the best content out there.
Thank you, Mo. I take the win. Much appreciated. I'm a big fan of your work as well, and hope we had the chance to hang out in Atlanta last week, which I very, very much enjoyed. Thank you for that, and hopefully it will happen again in the future.
Thanks, Oliver.
Thanks for watching. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the Speak Like a CEO channel. It means the world to me, and it helps us keep bringing you world-class insights and guests.